The protype titler is one of the more advanced ways of creating titles for your Vegas movie project. As with any media generator, it's got a package of easy-to-use presets for adding animations, but in the protype titler, you have much more control over exactly how these animations behave, and you can get pretty specific in creating your titles, animations, and effects. So the protype titler here on our media generators, and you can see we do have a couple of basic presets. And I'm going to drag one of the presets down to my timeline right above the existing event on the timeline where there is no video track. And you can see that it automatically creates a video track for me and it places my title right on the timeline. Let's reopen that window. This is unlike any media generator workspace you'll see. In fact, it kind of looks a little bit like After Effects or Motion. If you've used either of those, this workspace should look somewhat familiar. We can select the text here in the middle, and if I double click on it, I go into text edit mode, so I can select it all with Control A, and I can call this My Big Movie. While I'm in text edit mode here, I can select my font. I can select style. I can select the color of the font. I can select if it has a stroke around it or any of these other things that are available here in basic text. To get out of text edit mode, I click on the red bar at the top here or just press the escape key on the keyboard. And when I'm here, I'm in animation mode. Now, an important thing to note is that you have the option of animating the entire block of text, which Sony calls a paragraph, or I can add my animation to an individual word. If I use this down arrow here at the top of the screen and click on that, now my animation will apply to a single word. And once I create an animation, I can set it to cascade. In other words, that animation will apply to the first word, then the second word, then the third word. Or if I click on this down arrow again, I can set it to select an individual letter, and any animation I create will cascade down. It will roll down to the other letters that are here on display in my title. Let me show you how that works. Let's go to an easy effect. I'm going to select Gaussian blur, put a little check mark in there. I'm going to turn on the keyframing or toggle the animation here for vertical and horizontal blur. I'm just going to blur it completely like that. And you notice that it creates these little blur keyframes for the letter, the character M, down at the bottom of the screen on my timeline. I'm going to move the playhead out to about a second in, and I'm going to then take these sliders and slide them back down to 0. And now my text is in focus. And what I've basically created is a simple animation where I go from, as you can see as I scrub through, from blurry to my letter coming into focus. I can now cascade that by turning on the option to cascade that effect through my letters. And if I select that option, cascade, so in my cascade settings, I can set how much of a delay there is between each of the letters showing this effect. In this case, it's 20 frames, or about 2/3 of a second. Or I can even set them at random. And if I just double click on here to create a couple of keyframes, and then drag these up and down, now I'm saying, let's just randomly have this cascade down through the various letters. And you can see what my animation looks like. And now it'll be applied to a single letter. And then you'll see after the M comes into focus, the other letters will come into focus too. Let's go ahead and play that and you'll see it. You see how it kind of randomly brought each letter in? The effect sort of cascaded from the first letter to the other letters kind of randomly in the effect. Now that's one way to do it. You can create your animation completely manually, and you can create animations for the opacity or for the blur or for the glow or for the drop shadow if you'd like. And of course, there are animations you can create for scale to make things come nearer or farther from you, as well as rotating and as well as creating a shear effect. You can do that also, but I'm just going to delete this right now completely. And I want to show you a simpler way to do it. The program comes with a set of presets that are in a collection. Right here is our set of collections. And when I click on that, I can see the various animation collections. And if I want to see what any one of them looks like, I just click on it. You see that's a nice bounce. Can you see it down at the bottom of the screen? Whichever one I select, it's an automatic effect that's added to it. Some very cool, very fun effects. I want to select Coming At You here. I'll double click that. Now right now I don't see anything on screen. That's because the opacity effect is applied to it. If I move my playhead out here toward the middle, I can see Coming At You, and I can use this placeholder text to type in the name of my movie. I'll just double click on it to get into text edit mode and Control A to select it all and call it My Big Movie. And of course, now if I wanted to, I could change the font color or any of the other font styles. Let's get out of text mode and we'll take a look at what this animation looks like. Take a look down at the timeline and you can see what's going to be going on. We have an opacity applied to the entire word, and that opacity will mean that at the beginning of the timeline here, it will have faded out. It hasn't faded in yet. You also notice that the letter M has a Gaussian blur applied to it, a horizontal blur. As you can see, it's keyframed here. That's why it kind of comes in from a blur into us seeing the first letter. We also have the cascade feature turned on, and we have, as you can see, a sort of random delayed curve line here, which is going to make each of the letters sort of come into focus as this piece is animated to come toward us. When I shut down the character, you can see that we also have it set up so that the entire line or the entire paragraph is scaling toward us too. Not a big change here in the timeline. I can take a look at this in greater detail. I can take a look at the scale by clicking on this. You can see that there is a shape to the line here. That is the shape of this text coming toward us, getting closer and closer. You can't see it, but there is also a fade out at the end, an opacity setting that is off the edge. There it is at the end of my timeline. And so you can see after this text gets to a certain size and after all the letters have come into focus, it's going to fade to black. Let's take a look at how that looks. We'll play it. It's kind of cool. The letters randomly come into focus as it's coming toward us, and then once it gets to a certain size, it all fades out. You can customize these animations any way you want. And again, you can come up here to any of the effects, and you can apply any of the effects to individual letters or to individual words or to an entire line or paragraph of text here too. There's an awful lot you can do with this, whether you choose to use the collections or whether you choose to create your own animation. As with a lot of tools in Vegas, and in particular media generators, you can go as deep as you want with the protype titler. You can use the existing collections and create some very cool title animations. But if you want to go deeper and you want to manually create some very specific text effects, the protype titler offers you much more hands-on control than the more basic media generators like the titles and text or the rolling credit templates. It's a very, very cool tool, pretty advanced tool here, available for creating your titles in Sony Vegas.